Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Brown Mouthwash. That is BROWNMOUFWASH. I am your host, Matthew, and if you're watching, then you already could tell that this week it is just me. So if you're listening, it's just me. This is my first solo swig, if you will. But even though I don't have any guests this week, that does not mean that we can't still take a good, long, hearty swig of brown mouthwash. This is gonna be trash. I already know. Bear with me. Nonetheless, it's gonna be great. We still have a lot of things to talk about. It's still gonna be all of our segments and all that stuff. So let's just get right into it. The first thing we have is the first pour. And if you haven't caught on yet after 9 episodes, 10 episodes, the first pour is when we talk about current issues and relevant things that are going on in blah 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 blah. Y'all get the gist. So today is, as I posted this, December 21st. And guess who does not have powers yet? I'm upset because, so background, I don't know when this started or how or why. Maybe it has something to do with the planetary conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn and them. But black people were supposed to get powers on December 21st. Like, I was supposed to wake up today like Frozone and be like, where is my super suit? Like, I was ready to go out here and start bending things. And maybe I got to give it some time. Maybe because maybe I got to go to sleep and wake up and have it be like morning. But I stayed up past midnight to record this episode right before I posted, just to make sure that I could be accurate whenever I'm telling this story. I don't have my powers yet, you know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of upset about it because I really was looking forward to it. I thought I was going to be waking up and being a whole avatar, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought I was going to walk outside and or look outside, and instead of my car, Appa was going to be out there, so I could just be like, oh shit, yip, going to work, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was ready. You know how they don't tell you what the powers is gonna be before you get them. So I was out there, testing stuff. So I had a candle lit, and maybe I was trying to finagle the candle. I thought I was a firebender or something. Like, I thought I could pour my own swig of mouthwash telekinetically, and none of that worked. Like, I couldn't control like what my sister was doing from blood bending or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't even know the concept of teleporting. So what if I got powers and I don't know how to use them? You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, I feel like I've been left behind. You know what I mean? Like, I did my ancestry DNA results. Like, I know that I'm black, so it's not like I don't count. You know what you know what I'm saying? So what gives? What gives? What is it? What if they only got select? Nah, no, not even, because they said our DNA was supposed to be activated, and I traced my DNA back to Africa. So like, I just feel slighted, is what I'm saying. And I have been looking forward to this day ever since about a month ago when I heard that this was a thing, and I was just like, damn, this is lit. Like, we finally gonna get ours. And here I am waking up just as mortal as I was yesterday. Like, and don't try to give me no bullshit like your superpower is in your thoughts. Like, no, I'm not trying to be mentally super. I'm trying to be like undeniably super to where I'm manipulating the real world outside of my own head, I don't know. Maybe some people's superpowers are internal. Well, like, maybe somebody got powers today to actually mind their business. Oh, what a concept. Damn, maybe we were thinking about this all wrong. Like, maybe not everybody's powers are obvious. Dang. Well, if that is the case, I'm still upset because I need to be one of the people that got the obvious powers that I can be like flexing on Instagram about. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it? What is it? So I wanted to open this first pour by just saying that I am distraught that I waited until December the 21st just so I could come up here and potentially tell y'all good news and like what my newfound powers is going to be because my DNA has been activated. Maybe I got to wait till West Coast time. Maybe you got to, like, what time zone of the 21st are we trying to look for? Like, when should I wait till it's cracked up? Like, because people across the world, it's been the 21st for half a day. Like, what are those black people doing? You know what I'm saying? Maybe we need to log on to Twitter and be like, who got theirs early? Maybe it's gonna come when the stimulus check. Oh, let me not even go there. You know what? Let's move forward. Let's move forward. A huge thing that's been happening, if you've been keeping up with the news, is the COVID vaccine being released and starting to be given out to workers. Now, we kind of may have touched on the COVID thing last week and a couple weeks before, but I think it's been interesting not only the fact that the vaccine is being released and given out to people, but I've been paying attention to how they've been marketing, quote unquote, this vaccine. One of the first people and the first post that I saw of this vaccine being given out was given out to a black healthcare worker by another black healthcare worker. And I thought that that was interesting because even if it is coincidence that these are the people that were, giving and receiving the vaccine in that photo, it makes me wonder if there's another kind of agenda purposely positioning people of color and picturing them getting this vaccine and broadcasting and sharing that because they already know or have sensed the speculation or skepticism rather with communities of color surrounding this vaccine. Because if you have any knowledge or wherewithal about the health system and how it has treated communities of color, particularly black people, you know that we have been disenfranchised and honestly abused to a certain degree by the greater medical and community whenever it comes to health. I think that historically black people have basically been played as guinea pigs for a lot of healthcare. And even whenever it comes to treatments or service or access to care, our community has been very, very disenfranchised. So positioning these people of color, these black women, to be giving and receiving the vaccine, some of the first public photos that we've seen, I think that there can't help but be some kind of marketing strategy behind that. Now, I may just be a skeptic. I may just be some kind of conspiracy theorist to a degree or whatever, but I'm just trying not to stay blind to what is clear in front of me. So let me know your thoughts about that because, if I feel like I see it, I can't be the only person. That aside, I think that it is pretty hopeful that we are getting a vaccine and that they are starting to give doses. And I know that I have friends that work in healthcare themselves and have gotten at least the first dose of the vaccine. And they have all been saying that it's positive or that they, haven't had or felt any side effects or blah, 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 blah. All I know is that I'm still holding out hope for the first round of people before I go ahead and get things shot up in my arm. I'm just not trying to be anybody's first try whenever it comes to this. Maybe I'm, overthinking it, but I'd rather overthink it than be part of the first wave and something goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I'm good on it. I'm just going to continue my social distancing and just try not to get sick in the first place until I see a lot more evidence that this vaccine is good to go. Another thing that's been concerning a lot of people about the vaccine, aside from the cultural climate, is the fact that it was developed so quickly. Now, I do want to preface this by saying there has been work on the vaccine since COVID was discovered back in the end of 2019. So it's not like people started whenever the pandemic really got bad. But still, it is, I think, one of the quickest vaccines, if not the quickest vaccine we've seen for a virus at this scale. Possibly in history. So I understand why there could be some skepticism about it on that regard. As far as that, though, I do think that with the speed of the vaccine being developed, we have also advanced so greatly in technology since the last time a vaccine of this scale has had to be developed, if my memory serves correctly, that I believe that it's not as egregious as it may seem. I think that with the way that technology has developed, with the way that the medical community has advanced, and with the way that science has progressed in general, we are safer with this vaccine being produced even at this speed than we would have been if a vaccine was produced at this speed like 5, 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think that we can suspend a little bit of that skepticism as far as the speed at which this vaccine was produced. But I understand still where skepticism still remains in other areas. So that's my little hot take on the COVID vaccine. Aside from that, kind of, I guess switching gears with current events and things that are happening, let's talk about this versus. Okay, if you have been following pop culture and black music, you know good and well about the Versus series that Timbaland and Swiss Beats started way back during the pandemic, or rather the lockdown. Um, Versus started as a way of bringing together like legendary artists and putting them head to head in friendly competition, I guess you could say, and basically going hit for hit, So I think one of the first huge ones was Teddy Riley versus Babyface, two producers. And so, like, I think that was the one that broke Instagram. It had the most views on a live, an Instagram live, like ever since the thing started. And so you have hundreds of thousands of people tuning in to watch these music industry heavyweights go hit for hit and literally just bring us back to like the good old days of the 90s and the early 2000s, whatever era that those people were hot in. And it was just a huge way to do something for the culture and bring people together in the name of music. And like, since that has started, we've seen a lot of great matchups, be it Brandy and Monica, or what's his name, Gucci and Jeezy. I said Teddy Riley and Babyface already. And so a lot of these great artists from the times of us growing up have been, reacquainting us with their music. And it's just been a great way for everybody to come together and just vibe out and build a sense of community with everything being so locked down. Now, one of the matchups that was supposed to happen recently that has been postponed to the new year is Ashanti and Keisha Cole. Now, whenever I tell you that this was supposed to be like the matchup, because a lot of beefs have been squashed with verses as well, including those that I named earlier, Brandy, Monica, Jeezy, Gucci, etc. So Ashanti and Keisha Cole, I don't think there was any what? 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't think there was ever any like heavy beef between them per se, but those two going head to head with their hits was supposed to be something that everybody was looking forward to. And guess what happened? That postponed it. Ashanti got the Rona. So I think that one, I'm still tune in January, but I was so ready to clean my house, my apartment, whenever that versus was going down, because those hits, like, you can't tell me that guy, girl, old, young, whoever, you can't tell me that you don't stop what you're doing and start singing along whenever you hear love never knew it. Like, that is the jam, you know what I'm saying? Like, Keisha low-key has the bops, and Ashanti has given us classic after classic. Like, if you think about it and really look up all of her hits, Ashanti has some hits like baby, 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 baby. Like, that was it. And see my days that go without you, then I heard about you. Though, like, Ashanti's giving us bop at the bop, and then half of Jennifer Lopez catalog. So this versus was so anticipated, and I am so mad that it did not happen when it was supposed to. But maybe whenever it does show up in January, it's going to give us even more than what it promised us this month. That being said, I really miss whenever Versus was literally just one artist is in their home, the other artist is in their home, and they are literally just doing an IG live featuring each other. I understand that there were like technical difficulties whenever that was the system, but I feel like, especially given the current situation with Keisha and Ashanti being quarantined because she has COVID, preventing them being in the same place, that could have been a great opportunity for them to bring back that classic versus, and just see where it goes, you know? Because honestly, I think most of the fans, we could do without all of the production value, even though it helps for the experience. But I mean, I think most of us just want to listen to some good music from yesteryear, if you will. And I personally would have been fine with Homegirl in her room playing her hits while Keisha does the same. That being said, I really hope Versus does come back. And I know that they still have other matchups going on in the meantime, between time, but Ashanti versus Keisha is something I'm really looking forward to. Let me know what artists you guys want to see on the Versus up next. Um, my friends, my cousins, and I kind of went back and forth with some matchups that we thought could be really dope. And I don't know. I mean, personally, I wonder what it would be like. I don't know if these would be the most optimal matchups, but imagine like Chance the Rapper versus Childish Gambino, or like J. Cole versus Kendrick Lamar, or like um I can't even think. I can't even think of another one. Like Mary J. Blige versus Tony Braxton. I don't know. I'm trying to think of matchups in my head, but if you got better ones, definitely shoot me a DM at Brown Mouthwash Pod on Instagram or Facebook, or I don't know, email me at brownmouthwash@gmail.com. Let me know. So yeah, that's all I got for the first pour. I'll be keeping up with my news and things so that next week I can bring you some more relevant topics. But in the meantime, we're gonna go on to the swish. So if you haven't caught on by now, we're 10 episodes deep. What have you been doing? But the swish is our main topic of conversation. And since it's just me today, I think I want to speak about starting something new. So I kind of touched on this multiple times throughout the weeks with previous guests of mine whenever it comes to pursuing careers or expressing yourself, or passion projects, knowing when to leave, etc., this, that, and the third. But I don't know if any of those conversations really, really touched or spent a lot of time on the concept of finding something new. Especially with the pandemic and everybody being quarantined, this year has been a really great opportunity for people to really start their own things. And I know that that can be really daunting sometimes. I mean, I myself started this podcast not too long ago. So I first want to shout out a lot of people, or at least a handful of people that I know have started something new this year, or have at least seen something take off as far as new endeavors. So a lot of these people I've called out before, but just running down the list really quickly. Akaya Joy with Enjoy Candles. We went to school together at NC State, and she started her own candle line, and it's bomb. I bought one myself, and I am waiting to burn all of it. But she started an amazing company, and I think you guys should support her. Follow her at Enjoy Candles, INJOI Candles. I know we shouted her out back in episode 4, I believe, but I want to bring her up again. My homie Noah has his own clothing line called Limited Aesthetics, and that is aesthetics with an X at the end, and it's basically gym wear, athletic wear, and I think that's super dope. My friend Kevin, who was on an episode a couple weeks back with Bottomless Podcast. Not only did those three, Kevin, Leslie, and Vince, start that podcast, but Kevin started poetry and on his own poetry and account and channel. So those have been really great to listen to and hear. He has a really great skill for that. There are a whole lot of people, and I don't want to get too long into that, but basically, a lot of people have started new things. And whenever we talk about starting something new, a lot of the first hurdles that you have to jump mentally is, what is this going to be? What is it going to do? What is it going to look like? And then after you set all of that up, how is it going to move? How is it going to work? I know that whenever I was starting this podcast, those were a lot of the first questions that I had. And thinking through it, I think I didn't really have a whole lot of expectations. I just kind of knew that I wanted a platform where I could talk with people that were dear to me, or, special to me in my life, and we could just have real conversations. One of the inspirations of calling this podcast Brown Mouthwash is because I saw that TikTok or whatever about brown Listerine, and some dude was talking about how like real brown Listerine was. And I kind of took that idea and thought, oh, this could be dope. Like brown mouthwash, it is really raw. It's super good, super great at cleaning all the stuff in your mouth. But it's like that OG flavor of mouthwash that's unforgiving at times, and it just like it gets right to the heart of all the stuff. So that's what I wanted these conversations on the podcast to be. I wanted them to be raw and honest and unfiltered and just straight up. And I think that over the course of these past 10 episodes, that's been what it's been. So I had the concept down, and obviously if you guys kind of caught on, each segment is a stage of washing your mouth out in the mornings, from the first pour to swishing, gargling, rinsing, spitting, etc. So I had the concept down, and then the whole thing was about who was going to listen. So a part of bringing a lot of people on that I was friends with or I was close to wasn't explicitly or even primarily for them to share with their own networks. Honestly, didn't care at that too much about that. But I knew that sharing this space with people that meant a lot to me meant that we were having conversations, listening to each other, and then everybody that we were mutually close with could listen to these conversations as well, and tap in and relate. And that's what I wanted this podcast to also be: relatable. After that, then it gets into marketing and publicizing and making it bigger and all these great things, which I'm sure is going to happen in due time. But I want to bring that back to the first point about not having a whole lot of expectations. I was listening, or there's a clip from The Real, the talk show, from their earlier seasons that I really, really love, where Tamar was talking to Adrian about why she didn't sing anymore and why she should get back into music. And Tamar said something that I thought was really important and special. She said, you need to be in love with what you do, and you need to love your craft. And she said, I don't care if there's only 4 people that buy your music, me, her, and her. That's still 4 people that's supporting you. And at the end of the day, even if it's 4 people, 4,000 people, 4 million people, if you don't love what you're doing, none of it means anything. And that's where the joy of the craft and the joy of starting these things comes from. It starts from you loving you and you loving what you're doing. So my, I guess, tips or whatever for starting something new is to love it, and I think that that's an important thing. I love speaking with people. I love talking, as y'all could probably tell. So I love the idea of this podcast, and I mean, that's what it is. But it goes beyond passion projects. I mean, I have this podcast and I have the music stuff, and I'm working as a graphic designer professionally, and I love my job and all of that stuff. But even starting a new thing, as far as like maybe starting school, or starting to go back to school to get your master's, a new journey in education, starting a new job, starting a new family. Like if y'all are out there having kids and stuff, that's not me. But starting a new family, I think all of that kind of follows the same principle. You have to be invested. You have to love what you're doing. And once you get over those hurdles initially of those mental blocks, I think that the sky is the limit. So yeah, I encourage everybody to start something new and to, just pop off. You know what I'm saying? This kind of ended up being more of a gargle situation. Whatever. whatever. The whole thing is about starting new things. So I guess my question to all of the listeners is, what is a new thing that you've started? And what are some of your tips for starting that new thing? What does that look like for you? And how can people be more honest and more upfront and more invested in those new journeys? What are some things that could make it a little less intimidating? I mean, I know I gave a couple of things myself, but I'd love to hear from everybody else that's listening. What are some some tips that you might have for someone who is kind of on that fence of starting something new, but is ready to take, or at least trying to get themselves ready to take that leap? Hit me up and let me know. These segments are going by really quickly. So let me tell a story though. Okay. I already told the story about brown mouthwash, but I feel like I'm also taking this. I'm sorry. This is a tangent. Y'all be fine. I want to take this opportunity, being that I don't have a guest, to be a little more detailed, I guess, into myself and some of the things. Oh shit! But no, be to give a little more insight into not only what started this podcast, which I kind of already covered, but a little more insight into me in case you aren't as familiar, and other things that I kind of have been up to. This is actually really cool. So, talking about starting new things, I think that could also kind of piggyback onto restarting or coming back to things that used to be and bringing it back in a new way. So not necessarily starting it brand new, but restarting in a new way. Back whenever I was like 10, I created my own characters. Some of you guys already know where this story is going. Shut up, stay focused. I'm explaining for the new kids. So when I was 10 years old, I started drawing my own characters, and they were based off of Destiny's Child, and I basically drew a cartoon version of each of those members, all 6 of them. So the original 4, that one that lost her luggage, and then the new ones whenever the first 2 left. Yes, all 6 of them total. And I had them, and I instead of Destiny's Child, I called them Destiny's Teens. Creative, right? I was 10. Mind your business. So so I had Destiny's Teens, and I had all these characters. And instead of like Latoya, Latavia, Farrah, Michelle, Beyonce, Kelly, I renamed them to slightly similar but different enough names. Latanya, Latasha, Kiera, Rochelle, Bianca, Kelsey. Okay? Keep up. Stay focused. So I had my characters, and they were this cartoon version of Destiny's Child. And so I was like, yay, I got my own whatever version of whatever. And at first, I mean, the story was that they were a music group and all this stuff. And I mean, it was just something that I created for fun. But I also was a very big fan of other cartoons and like Magical Girl, anime, and everything growing up. And so I kind of incorporated those influences into my characters. And so I had this new thing called Disney's Teens, and there's a music group that they're also superheroines, and it was super dope. Like, and they're all black, and like they have powers and all this great stuff. So I thought I was doing something real fancy. And so I always started drawing pictures and all the stuff of the characters, of course, but then I created an animated YouTube miniseries of the same name. It's called Disney Scenes, the miniseries. And I was like, 10, 11 years old at the time, so I didn't have money, period, let alone money to purchase like Adobe software or anything to professionally, or at least more professionally, create animations and stuff like that. So guess what I had? Microsoft Paint, and Windows Movie Maker, and then some bootleg free version of Photoshop. You know what I'm saying? So I would be in there like literally making frame by frame animations in Windows Movie Maker and creating these episodes of this mini series. And I uploaded them to YouTube and actually started building a following. Like I reached out to other YouTube voice actors and got them to lend their voices to the project and everything like that. And I busted out like 3.5 episodes on YouTube. It's trash compared to what I could probably do now. But people were really invested in that show, and my friends watched it, and people on YouTube watched it, and I have like thousands of views on some of the videos and stuff like that. And this is all me like before the age of 13, just making this stuff for fun. And I think the last episode that I put out was actually a trailer for episode 4, and that racked up a couple thousand views, and I couldn't finish the episode because the hard drive that I had at the time corrupted, so I lost all the files. And because, like I was saying, I did frame by frame animation, and I didn't have advanced software, so a lot of the things that you could do animation wise, like set up one track with transparent I'm getting in a nerd language, one track with transparent background, so you could put in a little simple moving background animation in the back and layer them up. I didn't have all that. I didn't know how to do all of that, so everything had to be flat imagery, like frame by frame by frame by frame by frame. Point is, that was a lot of work, and once I corrupted that drive and didn't have those files anymore, I was like, I'm not about to do all this work. And then by that time I was getting into later middle school, high school, and so my time was just so divided I didn't have time to devote to the show. So the last thing that people had seen was that trailer for episode 4. And then I think over time I made a couple short like transformation animations, like little attack things or whatever, trying to keep it alive. I just ran out of time for it. So that was the story of the short-lived miniseries of Disney's Teens. But as time went on, I never stopped drawing them. I stopped posting, but I always liked drawing those characters because, I mean, they're my characters, and I have a special love for them. And over time on YouTube, people would keep watching the old videos from like 2012, 2013. And I actually saw not too long ago a comment thread that was asking, or one of them was just like this comment if it's 2018 and you're still watching this, like, or waiting for the next episode or something like that. It was like within the last 2 years, and people had been commenting under that, making a thread that was as recent as I think maybe a month ago. And somebody was like, I'm waiting for the episode still, but like, what happened to the creator? I heard that their hard drive was whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here like, dang, it's been 7 years since I put out anything for Disney's Teens on this channel, and people are still commenting, waiting for new content. So it made me think, like, I could really do something well with this miniseries and bring it back if I make time for it, especially now that I've gone through college. I have a graphic design degree, I have Adobe software that I pay for, and I'm a professional designer now, flex. So I can actually probably, put my nose back in the grind with this and create something really dope. So now that's on my radar to, get my feet wet in again. But it just goes to show, like, starting something new doesn't always have to be something that's brand new. It could definitely be a revamp of something that's old, and just adapted with new skill. And that's something that's on my bucket list now that I'm really excited for. And I've developed the character so much more, and I have so many more distinctive things for that. It is just something, I'm sorry to go on this rant, but it's just something that I'm really, really looking forward to getting myself back into potentially now, because it has evolved so much over the years, and I'm personally excited to see what my craft has grown to in between 2013 when I last animated something and 2020 now. So we'll see what happens in 2021. Stay tuned, I guess. But my ass gonna have to pick a fucking lane in a minute, because Matt, you're doing too damn much. Like, you got this podcast, and then you got this little animation that you're trying to do, and then you got this little music thing that you're trying to take off with. You're just doing a lot. You in this job still as a graphic designer. So you're doing 15 different things, and guess what? Guess how many people you are? One, baby. What are you gonna do? Um, sorry, internal conversation. So yeah, I think that anybody that's starting something new or bringing something back in a new way, more power to you. And if you need a sounding board, if you need somebody to look at what you're doing or give advice or even just hear your thoughts and hear like you pitch your shit to, like, hit me up. I'm all down for that. As somebody who is always seemingly looking into something new or doing something in a new way, like, I'm totally down for that, and I'm always down to support, because if we don't support each other, then who is going to support us? um so yeah, I think now my rant is officially over for the Swish, and this is a great opportunity to have a word from our sponsors. You know, doing that is a lot less satisfying when there's nobody else to react to it, because out of all 10 episodes, everybody in at least one of those episodes has been like surprised. Like, one, that's how you know everybody ain't watching every episode anyway. I don't blame them though. It's usually like 40 minutes before we get to that part. So, I mean, I would check out too. But there's always at least one person that's just like, damn, you got sponsors? And that's just been really satisfying. So now that it's just me, and I obviously know that I don't got nobody, so like, I mean, what am I going to do? I'm just blanking out the screen for no reason. All right, we're going to keep moving on. So the next thing is the, I forgot the order of my own thing. Matthew, get together. What are you doing? Baby boy. Shout out to B Simone. The next thing we have is the gargle, and that is advice and Q&A. So if you have anything you would like advice on, or any questions that you'd like answered, if you like this whole solo swig idea and you have any questions for me personally, send them over at Brown Mouthwash Pod on Instagram and Facebook, or brownmouthwash@gmail.com. And we would love to read your listening letters, answer your questions, give advice on whatever you're wondering, whether it's about you or about somebody else, about anything in general. Let's do it. Like, I mean, I might have a Ask Me Anything. Actually, on second thought, I might not have that, but I'm all for it. So for the gargle, I'm actually going to bring up a situation where somebody asked me a question, kind of advice, and it really kind of stumped me for a long time. And I just kind of want to do this to open up some conversation and maybe get some input from you guys too, if you guys hit me up. So I was recently talking with a friend of mine, and we were working on music things, and he asked me, he said, so how did you, Matt, how did you start learning music? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, like, how did you get to a point where you could sing a song without it playing in the background? Like, how can you just sing? And I know that the question might sound a little strange or whatever at first, but I really started thinking, and I was like, actually never really thought about that. Growing up, for me, I was always surrounded by music, and like, I come from a musical family, and I started singing in church, so I just was always inundated with music around me. Like, I think music is my calling personally. It just moves me in a different kind of way. So it was always second nature to learn music, know how to sing, or at least like learn, and, you know, break things down. And then I was always like keen to like social dancing, like, and then whenever, you know how the Crank That era started with Soulja Boy and them, like, I was always learning each new thing and like teaching myself choreo, like, to music videos, stuff like that. So TLDR, like, I was always around music, so I never had to think about how am I learning this or what goes into, you know, this, that, and the third, outside of course, like, learning theory and technique through choir and chorus classes. So whenever he asked, like, how do you know music, or how can you sing without hearing the music as it plays in real time, it really, really stumped me. And he also asked, kind of separately, or as a part to that, how did you learn to make your own music in R&B, that kind of genre, that area? And so that was nothing that I really couldn't answer, because growing up, that's the music I primarily listened to. So it was just something that was natural and already in my sphere. So I just created based on what I was already always around. Um, so my advice, or what I told him, was it's something that you have to be immersed in. It's or at least on how I create my particular style of music. It comes from the things that I was immersed in growing up. You can't make sentences with words that aren't in your bank. Meaning, I can't speak to you in a language I haven't learned, and I can only say as much as I have vocabulary for. So if music isn't something that you grew up around, then it's going to naturally be harder for you to create music. And if certain genres of music are things that you haven't been exposed to a large degree, it's going to be more difficult for you to create music in those genres. So that was basically the advice that I gave, or the, I guess, the perspective that I gave when it comes to a particular kind of music. Like I just grew up around it, it sucked explaining it that way, because I felt like it was a cop out. Like I wasn't really giving like a substantial response, but that was the best that I could really explain. Um, I mean, it's kind of like asking a native English speaker, how did you learn to talk? And I don't mean to say that in a way to diminish the question or its worth or its value, but it's that hard to explain. How did you learn to talk? And I'm like, I can't explain it because I learned it so long ago, or people were around me speaking and teaching me. So I just came up in an English speaking household, and that's how I learned how to speak English. Um, so there was that, and then thinking of, how do you know how to sing music without it being played, or how can somebody be like, hey Matt, how does Jingle Bells go? And you're automatically just like, dashing through the snow in a one horse open sleigh. Like it is difficult for some people to reproduce music in that way. Whereas if it was playing on the radio, they could catch on to it and sing along. And that stumped me as well at first too, because it, again, it's one of those things where it's so second nature. But it made me really think about like how is it that happens. Aside from the whole thing of like, oh, this is what I grew up around, how does that cognitively work with those processes, to where it's the different levels and degrees of understanding and knowing music? I think there's one thing to know the song itself and to hear the song and say, this is Jingle Bells. It's another level to hear the song and say, this is Jingle Bells, and then see it on paper and be like, yes, this is what it says. Another level still to maybe see the music and like read it, and then hear the song and sing along with it. But then I realized it's a step beyond that for the song to not be playing, and you can still sing it and you can still reproduce that. Um, I mean, I guess it just goes again into language. Like I can I can hear Spanish and be like, that's Spanish that I'm hearing, and I don't know what the fuck they're saying, but that's Spanish. And then I can hear Spanish and listen to it and understand it and translate it in my mind and know that like te amo means I love you, like como estás, how are you, that kind of thing. And then there's another step to hear Spanish, translate it in my mind, and speak it back and reproduce it, you know? And then of course there's reading and writing, blah blah blah. Reproducing language is a whole thing beyond that, you know. I have a lot of first generation American friends, or first generation or friends whose first primary language, get together. Friends whose primary language is English, where their parents' primary language is something else. They can understand their parents' native tongue, but not reproduce it. And then, of course, you have people that can understand a different language and reproduce it. So that's that different level. And then beyond reproducing that, there's reproducing it authentically, quote unquote, with the accents or the inflections. You know what I'm saying? We've all been in, probably, all been in that Spanish class or foreign language class where you got the dude that's in there reading like, Hola, yo quiero Taco Bell. And you're sitting there like, what? And everybody in there is like, okay, sure, those are the Spanish words, but like, where's the accent? Where's something? I mean, shit, and you just speaking Spanish like it's English. So there are levels to language, just the same way that I realize there are levels to understanding and doing music and things like that. So I give that long-winded spiel to say that, or to tell the story of how I've given advice to someone that was asking me about music. And I guess the lesson in all of it, aside from what I told my friend, is having to explain things that are second nature or more natural to you. It makes you reaffirm that which you've already known for such a long time. And it makes you, one, a better teacher, but it also makes you better at your own thing or whatever they're asking you about. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to just know, like, oh, I can play piano, but it's another thing to be able to teach someone how to play, or even just explain why you know how to play what you know how to play. And it calls out your own pitfalls or your own blind spots, things that you really can, substantiate even more. I realized explaining how I create my own alternative R&B or kind of R&B neo soul type music. It made me realize that maybe I didn't listen to as many of the foundational genres of R&B that we know today as I thought. Maybe I could listen to a little bit more of the blues, or of like soul music. Maybe I could, change up my own playlists to get a different kind of sound. Maybe I actually listened to more of that kind of music than I thought, or that I realized. And then I realized that my influences are a lot more broadly cultivated than I gave myself credit for. I can say all day I listen to the Beyoncés, the Rihannas, the more contemporary or recent artists from the 2000s, but in explaining to my friend how I have my own brand of whatever and the influences that my sound may come from, I realized that I also did listen to older artists that my older sister came up with in the early mid 90s, and that my parents listened to in the Motown era in the 70s, and how those little nuggets of things that I've been exposed to growing up actually impact the kind of music that I have an ear for today. Whereas somebody who may be listening to exclusively artists from the last 2 decades might have a completely different outlook on the same music genres that I play into. So yeah, basically, I mean, that advice giving experience, or answering those questions that were posed to me that I didn't expect, made me a lot more introspective into my own foundations and my own craft. So if you could follow all of that, kudos to you, because Lord knows I'm probably gonna listen back to this thing and be like, what the fuck am I saying? But nonetheless, anyhow, that's all that I got for the gargle. Yo, if every episode of Brown Mouthwash went this quickly, imagine how many more people would listen to this thing. Let me stay focused. Stay focused. Come on, Tab. All right, so the next thing we have up is the spit. And that is random, kind of hits, blunt thoughts or moments that come to my mind, which is actually more often than I like to admit. So, one thing that kind of one thing that kind of boggled me recently, whenever people say like, damn, this shit slaps, or like this shit smacks, like, where did that come from? And why is it that we find or attribute positive like things as violent? Does like, is that something that normal people think about? Like, this shit slaps. Like, I mean, because it just hits you that hard. You know what I'm saying? But it's a positive thing. Like, if you hear a song, it's like, yo, this shit smacks. Like, that's it. If you eat some food and you just like, ooh, that burrito taco, that shit hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that means it's bomb. That means it's really good. But is an actual smack positive? Like, is that, should that be something we're proud of? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. This is just something I thought of, an area of concern. An area of concern. Does that mean that our society is just prone to finding joy in pain? Is that a form of trauma bonding? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's something that we got to be a little more introspective about, Yeah, only I would really go that deep. And then the other thing is, since we're talking about food, is it just me, or do food-based analogies just like hit different than other analogies when trying to make parallels and explain concepts? Did I just say hit different? Did I not just talk about that? Look at me, it's ingrained. It's ingrained. But no, like legit, I'll be explaining certain things. I'll be explaining concepts or whatever, and people be like, what? But then whenever I break it down or parallel it with like food or something that's based around food, all of a sudden people get it. Like, they understand. I'm just like, yo, my food analogies are top tier. You can ask my kids in the fraternity. You can ask my friends, even my family. Like, I don't have a lot of good analogies, but the ones that hit the hardest are food based. You know what I'm saying? I can't think of them right now because that takes too much work. But I'm sure that even if you listen to previous episodes and scrubbed through or whatever, like, they may or may not have come up at different times. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I don't know. It was just something that kind of came to me. I just feel like with analogies, they got to be relatable, and if you're gonna break something down, you got to do something in a way that other people can relate to and understand. And like, everybody can relate to food, right? Like, otherwise, how would we even be here? Because everybody gotta eat. Speaking of which, this is another random thought. I really enjoy watching my 600-pound life in my spare time. Like, if I'm working from home or even after work, whenever I'm eating. Is it bad that I'm watching my 600-pound life? Like, I'm really invested in that show, especially when I'm also eating food. Like, I feel like I've talked about this before, and if I have, okay, well, you'll hear it again. But like, those people's stories be really interesting. Like, I feel bad, and of course, because it's unfortunate, and like, seriously speaking, it is unfortunate to see people who have gotten so out of control with their weight that they, struggle to that degree. And hearing some of their backstories, they come up through very poor circumstances that but just, I don't know why that show has me so invested. That and Dr. Pimple Popper, because she be getting them things out with them cysts and the lipomas and I be learning terminology. Like, TLC be having the shows, and TLC and A&E, they just be having the things, and I mean, they be doing the thing. So 10 out of 10 do recommend. So yeah, those are my random thoughts. Analogies, food, 600-pound people, and lipomas. All right, I don't need to do this by myself ever again. So the last thing that we have is called the burn. And anybody that uses brown mouthwash knows that shit can burn. So, this week, my burn is whenever I accidentally make noises that can be misconstrued as farts. This is a mini burn. I don't know why. It just makes me mad. So, like, have you ever been sitting on a couch or something, or like a leather couch, and then like you move your leg or your arm or something, and it goes like it rubs against the leather, but it sounds like it could be a poot. And then everybody looking at you like you made a. Don't look at me like that, because first of all, I told you what it was. I told you what it was, and you know that the regular toots don't even sound like that. So don't even get mad at me that's just what I did. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. I don't know why I got so heated about that. But that's just kind of more like a pet peeve of mine. But that's a mini burn. But my bigger thing is stop raining on everybody else's parade. And I know that's very broad, but particularly in the areas of people who like feel good about themselves, even if they shouldn't. Okay. Now, picture me this. You're in a store and you see a woman walk in. Maybe she has on a wig that is not blended or sitting right. You know, it's just not working for her. Maybe she should be a blonde and she's rocking a brunette today, or a lavender, whatever. So I understand. First of all, she needs better friends, because somebody who cares about her should have told her that, friend, this is not it for you today on this time. Like, this is a hat and this is not a wig, and it should be functioning more like a wig coming out your scalp than a hat. But the fact that it's not, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But let her be great. If that's what she decides to do. If you aren't in her purview, if you're not in her sphere of influence, then let her be great. Don't be raining on people's parades whenever they feel confident or good about themselves, because one, you don't know what that person had to go through to put on that wig and feel good about themselves. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's not your business what other people do to feel good. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she's not even thinking about that wig as though it's something that she seriously wants to rock, as though it's growing out her scalp. Maybe she knows that natural hair is not lime green, but she's feeling good in her lime green. And if she wants to look like Kermit the Frog on a Wednesday, then let her be Kermit. Do not rain on her parade because you don't approve of her hair. Because guess whose head is not on? Guess whose head is not on? Yours. So if it's not on your head, don't worry about whose it is and what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, baby, if you are wearing a Kermit wig and you are feeling good about yourself, the last thing that you would have time for is somebody coming up to you and saying, guess what? Where's my teacup? Because you look like Kermit. No, because guess whose business is not? Theirs. Okay? And so I know that you may have group chat material because of that woman's wig, but all of your commentary should go right there. The group chat. Like, there are actually people in this world that will bring things up to other people just for the sole purpose of ruining their day. And this is different from telling somebody, oh, there's toilet paper on the bottom of your shoe, and looking out for them like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between that, or even being like, hey, your tag is showing and it's because you wearing blah, 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 but your tag is out. You just want to let you know. Courtesies like that are different from just straight up telling somebody that you don't approve of something that they're doing, or calling somebody out on some stuff whenever it's not warranted. Like, it's unsolicited opinions. And unsolicited advice and unsolicited opinions are two different things. Now, neither of them may be warranted at a certain time, but there's a difference in the intention. And I think that that's very important to check your intent, you know? So my burn today are for people who intentionally comment or have something to say about somebody to that person, or in the realm, or like the vicinity of that person, just for the sole purpose of saying something fucked up or negative. Like, keep that shit to yourself. Tabitha Brown, the great Tabitha Brown, always ends her videos by saying, go on and have the most amazing day, but even if you can't have a good one, don't you dare go and mess with nobody else's. Yeah. And honestly, that is such great advice, because at the end of the day, you just gotta let people be what they are going to be, and that's their business, you know? And I know sometimes it is hard to withhold your opinions from people or whatever, but you have to read the room and understand whenever your opinions are actually going to be productive or necessary to whomever they're directed at that time, you know? And this goes beyond like the obvious, like walking up to a stranger saying something fucked up. This goes for your group chats. This goes for like your family at the dinner table on holidays, whenever y'all get back together or whatever. Anything. Reading the room is so essential. And everything that you have to say does not need to be said at certain times to certain people in certain ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, my mom used to always say, and I don't know where she got this from, but whatever. She always said there are some people that got something to say, and there's some people who got to say something. Check which one you are at that time, and then proceed accordingly. Because I had to learn a while back that sometimes you may have the right message, but you are not the correct messenger. And if you are not the correct messenger, your message is not going to get across regardless of how accurate or correct or needed or whatever it is at that time. Sometimes people will only listen to their mama. And if you did not birth no babies, that will never be you. So understand whenever you're not the right one, and then go about your day. Because at the end of the day, it runs through the realms of things that you can't control. And I think I talked about in the last episode, like, I learned how to let things go that aren't that deep for me or have nothing to do with me at the end of the day. No matter how much I may care about it, sometimes you gotta let people go through their own journey. So homegirl in the Kermit wig gotta go through her own journey. And if I ain't know about her journey before I stepped into that Walmart or that gas station at that time and saw her by chance, then I ain't gonna know shit else about her journey after I leave. So I gotta let her be great and then tell somebody else about it. At the end of the day, be like, I saw somebody in a Kermit for Frog green lime wig, and let me tell you about that. You know what I'm saying? So burn over, but the TLDR at the end of the day is like, if you got something to say, who are you gonna say it to? Why are you saying it? Does it matter at this point? Boom. Period. So on that note, I think I've said enough and I've done enough. I think I held y'all for about an hour, which is concerning and impressive at the same time, because nobody else is in this room. It's just me. And the fact that I could fill a whole hour by just talking about things myself, I'm gonna call it a blessing and a curse. It's a skill, and that's how I'm gonna leave it at. So thank y'all for bearing with me for my first solo swig of brown mouthwash. If you enjoyed this format, let me know. Hit us up at Brown Mouthwash Pod on social media, or email us at brownmouthwash@gmail.com. Leave comments on the YouTube versions of these videos, or if there's some way to leave comments on the audio versions. I don't know how, but figure it out. Maybe I can start uploading these to SoundCloud and y'all can leave comments there. We'll see. But in the meantime, in between time, I will come back next week with a new set of guests, and it'll be right back to the same mouthwash that you bought on week 1. So I'm very excited for that. As always, like I said before, reach out to us and everything. But tune in and share this podcast with everyone that you can. Listen to this on your way to work, during your work day. If you have a spare hour and a half on an evening, or if you just need some background noise, just play it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And I will see you all next week for another swig of brown mouthwash. Be well and goodbye.